I stumbled upon 50 haunted tales that will keep you awake in a dark storm. I never should have opened that door. The moment I turned the knob, a chill swept over me, colder than any winter night. Shadows danced in the corners of the dimly lit room, whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. My heart raced. The air around me felt heavy. A sense of dread filled my chest. Every day I followed the same routine. I'd wake up to the sound of birds chirping, the sun warming my face. But this day was different. The sky was dark, clouds swirling like a restless crowd. I felt an instinctive pull, an urge to dig deeper into the mysteries lurking in the forgotten quarters of our little town. The house stood isolated, looming over the landscape like a forgotten sentinel. Its dark wooden frame creaked and groaned, as if lamenting its long-ago inhabitants. The enormous trees surrounding it whispered, their leaves rustling like hushed voices. I stepped inside, the wooden floorboards trembling beneath my weight, and the stale smell of mold filled my nose. I walked deeper into the house, each step echoing like a heartbeat. Then the noises began. Soft thumps, followed by an eerie silence that seemed to swallow the air. My breath quickened. I glanced over my shoulder. Shadows stretched behind me, lingering longer than they should have. I was not alone. I had ventured into the heart of the unknown, where the walls seemed to breathe. Something brushed against my leg. I jumped, my pulse pounding in my ears. I told myself it was just a mouse or the wind, but the whispers grew louder. They called my name, a chilling refrain that sent shivers down my spine. As I reached the staircase, a groan resonated from above. I hesitated. Should I turn back? The weight of the air warned me against it, yet curiosity pulled me forward. My fingers brushed the railing, cold to the touch. Suddenly, a door slammed shut on the upper floor. I froze, heart racing. What was up there? What had I uncovered? Fear gripped me. I could feel something watching, waiting in the dark. I took a step back, senses heightened, every hair on my body standing on end. And just then footsteps echoed down the hall, slow and deliberate. I turned to run, but it was too late. Out of the shadows a figure appeared, eyes glinting with a darkness I couldn't comprehend. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound escaped. Closed in, and all I could think was, how did I get here? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I was rooted to the spot, trapped within an invisible web woven from fear and darkness. The figure stepped closer, an aura of dread radiating from it. As it drew near, I could discern more than just its outline. The atmosphere warping like a mirage in a fever dream. It was human, yet not. Its skin was mottled and pale, the features obscured by shadows that seemed to cling to it like a shroud. Why did you come here? The figure rasped, the voice a chilling melody that resonated to the very core of my being. It echoed with countless whispers, a cacophony of souls lost and forgotten, begging or warning. I couldn't tell which. I stumbled backward, trying desperately to articulate a response, but my throat was dry and tight, as if the air had turned to lead. I was suffocating in the weight of its gaze. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure lunged forward. In that split second, a jolt of adrenaline surged through me. I ran, heart hammering wildly in my chest, racing down the hallway as a chorus of voices erupted around me. Each step I took seemed to wake the house, inducing a violent crackle that echoed through the walls. The floorboards screamed against my weight, and the air swirled with resentment, urging me to escape. As I reached the staircase, the world around me twisted. The shadows grew thicker, almost sentient, reaching for me with grasping tendrils as if they intended to drag me back into the void. I leapt down the steps 2 at a time, desperate to escape the terror pursuing me. But the moment I hit the ground floor, the front door slammed with such force that the house seemed to shudder. My heart dropped. I was trapped. I spun around, searching for another exit, when I felt the floor shift beneath my feet, a subtle vibration that startled me into silence. A soft, Disembodied laughter echoed from within the walls, a sound thick with malice, dancing in perfect counterpoint with my rising fear. It reverberated around me, building until the laughter morphed into anguished wails. The words began to coalesce, forming an understanding from the chaos. They were trapped just like me. Suddenly, a door flung open to my left, revealing a dimly lit room. I hesitated, torn between the instinct to flee and an inexplicable draw toward the flickering light within. I found myself stepping inside, the air thicker than before as if it held the secrets of the house nestled within it. The room was an altar of despair, a haphazard assembly of broken furniture, framed photographs with faces scratched out, and objects thrown about as if a great turmoil had once taken place. Everything held the scent of decay, the unmistakable aroma of lingering despair. Patterned across the walls were handprints, the kind that appeared desperate and bloodied, suggesting not just escape but sheer terror. As I examined the room, I caught sight of a mirror hanging lopsided above a battered dresser. My heart stilled. The reflection hadn't changed, but the room behind me where I had just stepped from was now a completely different scene. I was no longer alone. Shadows flitted in and out of view, their chilling whispers now taking the form of sobs and cries for help. I turned to the mirror, unable to tear my gaze away. In it, the reality behind me twisted further. There stood the figure once again, appearing in the reflection, eyes wide and unblinking. They leered at me as their lips curled into a sinister smile, revealing rows of sharp teeth that appeared to drip with darkness itself. "Join us," it hissed, and with that, the room around me pulsated, each heartbeat blurring the edges of my reality. I turned away from the mirror, my mouth agape as I felt the pressure of countless hands pushing against my back, shoving me toward the doorway that had previously closed. The laughter swelled, echoing in an alien crescendo, signaling a finality I couldn't comprehend as I stumbled backward, the feeling of being pulled in two directions at once. Should I confront the chaos behind me, or succumb to the dark abyss lurking at the threshold of the room? My choice was made for me when the mirror splintered, the shards creating a labyrinth of reflections, showing me different paths back to the life I had known. Yet each was shadowed by the figure as I stood, ripped between the worlds. I caught sight of one final reflect, Iona child, standing in the darkness of the house, reaching out to me with hopeless, pleading eyes. Just as I crossed the threshold in search of escape, the figure lunged through the cracked mirror, teeth bared, and I felt a sharp pain pierce through my chest, and then everything went dark. I awoke to a muted world, thick with shadows and disorientation. Time felt irrelevant and the air was heavy, pregnant with a silence that unnerved me more than any clamor. It wasn't just dark. It was a suffocating void that clung to my skin, making my heart race. I pushed myself up from the cold floor, confusion clawing at my mind as I tried to piece together the fragments of memory. The mirror, the figure, the piercing pain in my chest. I grasped at the fading remnants of a dream or a nightmare, unclear and surreal. I could still feel the tingling aftershock, like a phantom grip around my heart. Panic washed over me. I needed to move to escape this oppressive silence. When I finally stood, I glanced around the room. It was the same one I had entered, but it felt transformed. The handprints once adorned with a sense of longing were now an unsettling tapestry of grotesque faces, all seemingly crying out to me, their eyes hollow and pleading. I tried to back away, but just as I turned, a loud thud echoed from somewhere deep within the house, reverberating through my bones. My instincts screamed at me to run. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to get out. I forced my legs to carry me toward the door, only to stumble upon the scattered remnants of a shattered photograph lying among the debris. I knelt to inspect it, a long-held breath escaping my lips as I recognized the faces, the family that once lived here, their smiles now twisted by a cruel fate, marked by the same bloody handprints I had seen on the walls. Fear gripped me, for that glimpse of humanity quickly vanished, replaced by whispers that began anew, taunting me from the shadows, circling like vultures around a carcass. "Help us!" The voices divided and multiplied, the tone shifting from desperate pleas to chilling laughter once more. I felt a chill run through me, a visceral reminder that the house was alive, breathing through its walls as the darkness writhed and coiled within. Resolute, I pressed on, driven by sheer terror. I hurried down a narrow corridor where the air turned frigid, each breath misting before me like specters rising from the grave. The shadows played tricks as they flickered, twisting into grotesque forms, rising like specters in a macabre masquerade. I fought back the urge to scream, aware that I needed to reach the front door somehow, away from whatever hunted me. But then a soft giggle nestled itself into the air, sweet yet perverse, a sound I instinctively recognized as that of a child. I froze in my tracks, dread fluttering in my stomach. The echoes of sorrow transformed into something playful and haunting, drifting around the corners like a lure for the unwary. "Come play." The giggle beckoned, now just a whisper against the walls. "Come play with me." Timidly, I turned toward the sound. It led me to a small, dimly lit room at the end of the hallway, the playroom. Once filled with laughter, now a grotesque gallery of abandoned toys, all cast in shadows. A rocking horse creaked, swaying gently as if it had a pulse of its own. A dusty crib stood in the corner, its blanket neatly folded, untouched by time. Beads of fear lined my skin. The air around me buzzed with nostalgia tainted by something sinister. In the far corner, illuminated by a shaft of pale light, a small girl sat cross-legged on the floor with her back to me. She wore a frilled dress, its once vibrant color now washed out, fabric threaded with shadows. She mumbled to herself, her dolls surrounding her, their heads turned in my direction, eyes brimming with sorrowful anticipation. "Come play," she whispered again, her voice laden with 1,000 regrets, a request twisted by despair, her tone holding an edge that chilled me to my bones. That I took a wavering step closer, but the instant I did, the air grew thick with an acrid scent, burning, acrimony layered over despair. The moment settled like a grave upon my shoulders, as I felt an inexplicable urge to dive deeper into that encroaching darkness. My heart raced, urgency battering against my ribcage. I needed to know, I had to understand what bound these lost souls within these walls. In a blink the girl turned, her face barely illuminated, yet a flash of darkness enveloped her features, a smile far too wide splitting her face, exposing teeth jagged and sharp. "Stay with us forever," she gushed, a cacophony of laughter resonating behind her. In that terrifying instant all light seemed to dim, the shadows lifting off the walls as they converged toward me, shrieking in a fury of sound, an amalgamation of voices lost to the soil of time. The door slammed shut and I realized I was not just surrounded, I was being consumed with a primal scream. I turned to flee, but before I could take a step, the floorboards buckled beneath me, threatening to swallow me whole. The girl's laughter rang out, ringing in my ears like a death knell, and as the darkness surged, I stumbled only to find the walls closing in, narrowing the space as the shadows lunged toward me with desperate fury. And then, just as the shadows reached me, I felt a cold, bony hand grasp my ankle, pulling me toward an abyss that yawned beneath my feet. The last glimpse I caught before plummeting into darkness was that of the girl, eyes wide with delight as she whispered, "Welcome home," and I could see the other faces emerge from the night, endless and ravenous. I plummeted downward, the grip tightening around my ankle as an icy wind swept through the vast void, biting into my skin with relentless ferocity. My heart thundered in my chest, a frantic rhythm of despair as the screams of lost souls echoed around me, layered like the cacophony of an approaching storm. There was no sight to see, no sense of direction, just an infinite expanse drowning in oppressive dark. Then the pull released and I landed with a thud on something surprisingly solid. My pulse raced and I scrambled to my feet, only to find myself in what appeared to be a cavernous space, its architecture alien and grotesque. The walls shimmered with a faint bioluminescence, illuminating grotesque carvings that seemed to writhe and shift under my gaze. Faces screamed silently from the stone, their mouths wide and open, yet I heard no sound, just the resonating shrieks replaying in my ears. "Welcome to the playroom," echoed the previous girl's voice, now even more haunting, swirling around me as if it lingered in the very air. In the eerie light I could see remnants of dolls scattered across the ground, their glassy eyes reflecting the faint glow like unblinking sentinels. I took hesitant steps, my breath shallow, haunted by the knowledge that I had crossed a boundary far beyond my comprehension. I turned a corner, my thoughts racing, the need to escape clawing at my insides, when I stumbled upon a dilapidated door, splintered and warped, sitting ajar. I reached for it, my fingers trembling as I pushed it open with a gentle creak. Beyond, a chilling sight burned itself into my memory. A room lined with mirrors distorting reality with every reflection. Stepping within, I felt the air thicken, smothering me as the reflections rippled like water disturbed by unseen hands. My heart raced as I marveled at each mirror, Every version of myself melded with horrific figures lurking in the background, a grotesque dance of torment, woven into the shapes of the reflections. Each face peering back at me bore the palpable mark of despair, twisted in ways that echoed the screams of those I had seen etched into the stone walls. Then I felt it whispers rising from the shadows, a chilling chorus thrumming like a heartbeat beneath the surface. Join us, they overlapped and interwove with one another. Each voice coated in sorrow, pleading yet angry. You are one of us now. Panicked, I turned again, the reflections now morphing and reshaping, some reaching out as if toward me, their faces contorted with both longing and malice. They called to me, wrapping me in their voices, pulling my thoughts toward the heart of their despair. My own breath caught in my throat, a silent scream, as the longing to escape twisted into a grotesque urge to sigh, a yearning to step into the glass and join the suffering. Suddenly, a new figure emerged among the reflections, tall and shrouded in darkness, its silhouette pulsed with an otherworldly energy. It stood apart from the others as if commanding the very essence of the room. My breath hitched, and I could barely comprehend the presence before me. I felt drawn close, an involuntary pull that made my skin crawl with dread. Do you not wish to belong? It rumbled, the voice deep and resonant, vibrating the mirrors around me. You are one of the damned, just like them. You cannot turn away. I wanted to scream, to fight against that insidious pull, but the mirrors began to shimmer, revealing something more horrifying. The darkened chamber outside had transformed into a swirling tempest of shadowy figures clashing and screeching. The figures were not just reflections. They were corporeal, emerging from the very fabric of the mirrors like living nightmares. With hands outstretched and cries of pain spiraling through the air, they surged toward me, a tide of lost souls, their faces twisted in recognition and betrayal. The girl's laughter rang out above the chaos, lovely and malevolent, weaving through the tumult as if she reveled in my torment. Let them see you. You belong to us, she shrieked, her voice slicing through the tangled mass of despair. I staggered back, the splintering reality closing in around me and choking my breath. I could hear my own thoughts spiral, mixing with the cacophony as I turned, frantic with fear. Then amid the madness I spotted another doorway, shimmering faintly to my left. With every ounce of determination and panic, I bolted for it, feeling the grasp of shadows pulling at my shirt, icy fingers brushing against my skin as the souls screamed for my surrender. But just as I lunged for the doorway, a bone-chilling echo resonated. An enormous crack reverberated through the chamber, freezing me in place. I turned, heart in my throat, to see the mirrors shatter, shards flying outward like a storm, each fragment reflecting a glimpse of what lay beyond the abyss, waiting to swallow me whole. As the shards of glass spiraled toward me like confetti of despair, I realized the horrors of this place were far worse than I could possibly comprehend. Flight was no longer an option. The last thing I would remember in that moment of pure terror was the boyish voice from beyond the doorway, whispering something familiar yet sinister. You can't escape the game. And then the world shattered around me. I awoke in an unfamiliar space, not quite knowing how long I had been unconscious. The air hung heavy with a sickening mixture of mildew and decay, coating my lungs like a poison. I struggled to sit up, my limbs sluggish as if weighed down by the lurking shadows around me. There was no light here, only the faint murmur of something breathing, an unseen entity filled with malice just beyond reach. Fumbling in the darkness, I found the walls sticky and damp, the texture reminiscent of something organic, pulsing softly beneath my fingertips. My heart ached with dread, recalling the boy's final words. You can't escape the game. I felt the pull of something deep within that statement, a truth so dark it made my skin crawl. This place was alive, a grotesque being that thrived on fear and longing. My breath quickened as I pushed against the walls, my escape instinct taking over. I lurched forward, stumbling through the oppressive void, grappling with the shadows that seemed to reach for me from every side. Each step echoed like a funeral dirge, taunting and ominous, the sound melding with the far-off whispers that now swirled into a chaotic symphony of anguish. Come play with us, they beckoned, soft yet agonizing, wrapping around my thoughts and twisting something inside me. The longer I lingered here, the harder it became to resist the siren call. Suddenly I stumbled across something, the cool touch of a metal latch under my fingers. Hope surged through me, raw and desperate. I yanked it down and a door creaked open, flooding the area with a sickly fluorescent light that flickered uncertainly. With a pounding heart, I stepped into the light and froze, The room was immense, filled with grotesque displays of what appeared to be taxidermy twisted and warped shapes that seemed to writhe in silent agony. Starlight from above refracted through the globes of glass encasing the displays, illuminating faces trapped in eternal despair, their expressions a tragic blend of fear and longing. The smell of rot was overpowering. My stomach churned as I fought the urge to vomit, my thoughts racing back to the voices that echoed in my mind. "You are one of us now." A chilling laugh echoed, piercing through the morbid atmosphere. It belonged to a figure draped in shadows, its form shifting like smoke around a flame. The girl I had encountered in the mirror room emerged from the gloom, her face awash with malevolence, livid eyes boring into mine. "Welcome to my gallery," she taunted, gliding toward me with an eerie grace, her fingers trailing along the glass cases. "What a wonderful display of submission, wouldn't you say? Each piece tells a story, a tale of those who could not escape." I took an instinctive step backward, every urge in my body screaming for flight, every instinct guiding me to flee her presence. But she continued, unaffected by my fear. "You see, I chose them. I can choose you too. Will you be my greatest masterpiece? An eternal symbol of what it means to be trapped?" Urgency gripped my throat, choking my cries as the walls behind me shimmered, the pleas of those interred within the walls growing louder, hungry voices clamoring to be freed, yet warning me against the sinister game unfolding in front of me. The auras of the trapped souls shimmered like shattered glass. Pleading hands reached toward me as if they could pull me into their web of despair. Without thinking, I bolted past her, desperate for the next door, my heart racing with the thrill of escape. But the moment I reached the entrance, a wall of shadows slammed down before me, solid as night. I slammed my palms against it, frantic, panic unleashing a surge of electricity that buzzed throughout my body. I turned back to see her standing there, teeth bared in a predatory smile, eyes glowing with delight. "It's no use," she purred, stepping forward, her presence suffocating, wrapping around me like chains. "You belong to me now, and I will not let you go until you understand the beauty of this suffering. The game requires a player, and now you are one." In a flash, the gallery transformed, colors swirling and shapes bending as the walls vibrated, pulsating with a low hum that resonated through my bones. I felt the bodies within the glass cases shift, writhing in newfound unrest. They screamed now not in despair but for me. "Join us! Join us!" I stumbled backward in horror, caught in a vortex of mounting dread. I could feel their pain clawing at my mind, breaking through my resolve. The shadows pulled at me, whispering my name, coaxing me to join their twisted assembly even as I fought to distinguish reality from the nightmare around me. And then I saw a glint of silver drifting in the air, suspended and spinning like a deadly Dancian obsidian knife, shimmering cruelly as it landed softly on the floor. Its presence was intoxicating. I closed my eyes, teetering on the brink of submission, terror and intrigue intertwining. "Choose," the girl whispered, her voice a sultry venom. As the cacophony swelled, echoing loud enough for the entire universe to hear, I reached for the knife, a mere breath from unwinding the very fabric of my reality. What would I have to sacrifice to survive this moment? And as I felt the blade's cold weight in my palm, I knew it would change everything. The weight of the knife was ominous in my hand, cold and foreign, a crystal promise of both liberation and damnation. The thrumming pulse of the gallery seemed to synchronize with the racing of my heart. Echoes of laughter and cries clashed, twin forces pulling at my essence, vying for my allegiance. I was standing on the precipice of despair, where shadows and light melded into an indistinct dance. I could feel the girl's gaze on me, a molten gaze that bore through my defenses. "You see," she murmured, a sinister smile vacuuming the breath from the room. "To wield that blade is to take back control. It's not just a weapon. It's your ticket into this world. Don't you want to be free? To escape this prison of misery?" "Free?" I spat, recoiling from her intoxicating charm. I could hear the crackle of energy in the air, the static buzz that set my nerves alight. "This isn't freedom. It's a trap." "Ah, but a trap of your own design," she continued, stepping closer, the darkness curling around her like a living cloak. "You can carve out your own fate. Every cut, every slice can release you from your confusion. Embrace the pain and unleash your potential." Shards of indecision pierced my mind. I was drowning in the weight of necessity, caught between the horror of this place and the allure of wielding a power that could reshape reality. The cries of the trapped souls crescendoed, a chorus of tortured hope urging me towards the brink. Join us. Make them suffer. Show them your strength. A deep chill erupted within me, intertwining with my fear. The gallery warped again, the glass cases bulging as if the inhabitants within were responding to my internal conflict. Faces contorted in agony and longing pressed against the glass, imploring, begging, and demanding. I stepped back, horrified, feeling their collective despair seep into my bones, burrowing into my psyche. The girl laughed, a haunting melody echoing around me. What is the matter? Scared of a little pain? You'll find it an exhilarating companion in this realm. Why not take that blade and carve your way through the anguish? As she danced closer, I clutched the knife tightly, feeling its energy pulse through me, a dark twinkle igniting the depths of my soul. I could feel my neural pathways contort, a sinister bond forming. In that twisted moment, I felt a part of me whispering back, urging me towards her. The shadows slithered, heavy with temptation. No! I screamed, the noise reverberating painfully in the charged atmosphere. I threw the knife away with a sudden burst of strength, watching it slice through the air, spiraling toward the wall. It embedded itself deep with a vicious thud, sending a shockwave through the room that made the glass cases shudder violently. The gallery trembled as if enraged by my defiance. The laughter of the girl twisted into a roar of fury, stone cold and unrelenting. Fool! You do not understand the depth of your choice. The once familiar walls shifted violently like a living thing, and I stumbled as shadows morphed into grotesque limbs, writhing and contorting as they crawled toward me. I could feel the air grow heavier, laced with a malignant dread that chilled my blood. The inhabitants of the gallery turned their hollow gazes towards me, their mouths opening in silent screams. Suddenly, a blight of darkness enveloped the room, and I gasped as the shadowy forms lunged. A wave crashed over me, and for a moment, I felt nothing, only an overwhelming void, suffocating and absolute. I was engulfed, swallowed by the malice of the gallery. In that instant, silhouettes glimmered against the void, flickering like dying stars, a procession of the damned emerging to grasp my arms, dragging me into the depths of darkness. Their fingers were icy, but their touch burned with a fire of horror, igniting every nerve in my body. I could see their faces now, countless lost souls merging into a frenzy of grief and terror, each whispering secrets that blurred my grip on sanity. The girl loomed above me, her eyes glinting like shards of ice. You wanted to belong, didn't you? Now you will know how it feels to be truly trapped. With a final scream, I found myself free-falling into the abyss, swallowed by the horrors lurking within, as the laughter echoed, a cacophony of mirth and madness, leaving nothing behind but a vacuum where hope once lingered. Just as I braced for oblivion, an explosion of light flared around me, filling the void with blinding brightness. And then I was pulled back into reality, gasping, consciousness seeping through the cracks of terror. The gallery stood before me, but it was different this time. It was alive. I was no longer an observer. I was a participant in its unending game. Panic swelled as a new realization sank into my bones that I had not escaped. The knife lay not far from my feet, glinting seductively, now smeared with blood. And then I heard the whisper, a soft yet unmistakable voice, my own voice seeping from the shadows. Welcome back to the game. A cold shiver snaked down my spine, and before I could process the horror that filled the air, the walls began to shimmer again, revealing a door, the door opening to worlds even darker than before, calling me forth like a sinner summoned to judgment. No! I screamed, but the shadows enveloped me anew, their grip tightening, and I felt the suffocating figure of despair wrap its fingers around my throat. What lay beyond that door, waiting to consume me whole? The door creaked open and an agonizing sound pierced the air, as if all the sorrow contained within the gallery had quickened to life. It was a child's sob, hollow and punctuated by terror. A flicker of recognition ignited within me. I had heard that sound before, echoing from the depths of my own forgotten past, a siren call laced with memories I dared not revisit, wrenched from my thoughts. I was drawn toward the door by an unseen force, my body betraying my will to resist. Each step I took felt like shattering glass beneath my feet, splintering the quietude of my mind. Within the frame a swirling mist beckoned, alive with whispers of the lost, their words intertwining and forming an almost cohesive wailing, a symphony of dread feeding the darkness. I hesitated at the threshold, instinctively knowing that crossing it meant plunging deeper into realms of suffering and sorrow. The choice between the safety of the gallery's confines and the seductive grip of the fog loomed before me like a precipice over an abyss. Instinct clamored for me to retreat, that is, until another voice surged for the deep, malevolent chuckle rising from the gloom. Do you not remember? The voice dripped with mockery, curling around each syllable, enticing me to unravel the threads of my own existence. You wanted to find her, didn't you? To understand who she was? Face it. You belong in the darkness. Images flooded my mind, slivers of memory cascading like broken glass, and I was overcome by visions of a small, frightened girl caught in the web of despair, a shadow of her former self chained to an echo of laughter that faded into cries. Why had I buried that anguish? Why had I ever thought it safe to forget? Before I could comprehend, the child's sobs turned to gasps of laughter, sound distorting like the fingers of smoke reaching out to curl around my throat, squeezing tight. Come play with me. She beckoned from behind the misty veil, her voice soft yet sharp, like the glimmer of a blade beneath flimsy fabric. I stepped forward, driven by a potent mix of fear and relentless curiosity. As I crossed the threshold, a wave of frigid air enveloped me, and the whispers morphed into raucous chatter as though I had broken the seal of a long-forgotten carnival. Shadows flitted all around. Figures danced in grotesque movements, twisting and writhing as if disentangling themselves from their own skins. My pulse hammered a frantic rhythm as I found myself in a dimly lit room, the walls pulsating like living flesh. Welcome, they cried in delight, an uproar that filled me with equal parts dread and fatal fascination. The sight was sickening yet exhilarating. Broken souls flitted like marionettes, joyfully ensnared in a performance that defied comprehension. Their faces were painted with shimmering smiles that only sharpened their twisted features. Panic surged through me as I lost sight of the exit. The laughter grew closer, and among the cacophony, I could hear her voice again, the girl now sharper and insistent. You can save me. Find me. Set me free. Instinct drove me to push forward, desperate to unearth the childhood I thought I had estranged, my heart pounding as I maneuvered past the figures who now circled me, their eyes gleaming with a wild hunger. Then, through the storm of figures, I caught a glimpse of Hermie's sister, her likeness unmistakable yet wreathed in heavy clouds of shadow. She stood at the center of the chaos, trapped in a bubble of darkness, her eyes wide with terror, pleading through frantic whispers that barely breached the veil separating us. Help! She called, her voice breaking as she reached through the dark, fingertips brushing against the air, longing for connection. Something within me twisted in anguish. Those eyes, mirrors to my childhood fears, felt like home yet were drenched in a profound sorrow that twisted my gut. Don't you see? The laughter echoed back. Now warped and sinister, you can join her. Feel her pain. Embrace the burden of her existence. The air thickened with anticipation, shadows shifting to the underlying rhythm of my sister's cries. Urging me to step closer, that I lunged forward, desperate despite the gnawing dread, as tendrils of darkness reached out from behind, wrapping around my legs and pulling me down. No, I yelled, feeling their icy grip squeezing tighter, dragging me away from her light. Let me go! The disembodied shadow chuckled, taunting me as the room twisted, morphing into kaleidoscopic visions of unfulfilled desire. Would you let her go? The point of this game isn't to save her. It's to embrace the darkness and take hold of your fate. She's merely a part of you. A haunting laugh punctuated the threats drumming into my ears, forcing me to confront the horrifying reality. Her screams crescendoed just as I fell deeper into the writhing mass teeming with the shadows of the gallery. My limbs caught in a game I was never meant to play. As I twisted to break free, the ground opened beneath me, an inky chasm consuming reality whole, and with a single pulse her face disappeared into darkness. My screams mingled with hers in that abyss, voices spiraling through the void like echoes of despair. What will you sacrifice to bring her back? The laughter taunted, and in that moment I understood. In that moment, amidst the swirling chaos and the gnashing darkness, I also felt the knife's familiar pull against my skin, its glimmer now ignited by the promise of sacrifice lurking within me. What truly lay ahead was far worse than I had ever imagined, and I could only dread the choice poised at the precipice of my being. Find out if you dare, the shadows hissed, sealing my fate as the darkness pulled me deeper into the storm. Or was it my own heart that cast the final shadow? The howling of the wind cut through the chilling dusk like a blade, and I was suspended in a liminal space where the chaos of shadows beckoned. promising both salvation and deeper despair. My feet were rooted to the ground, the icy tendrils of dark energy still coiling around my ankles, as though I were destined to be ensnared within the depths forever. The cavity of loss throbbed in my chest, one part longing, one part horror, and I dared not turn back, even as the laughter echoed in waves, rising in pitch and mockery. Sacrifice, dear sibling. What will it be? The voice warped and twisted, sickeningly sweet, reverberating not just in my ears but deep within my marrow. Shadows flickered around me like flames about to be snuffed out, each one a tale unspoken. I could almost see their histories intertwining, threads of darkness curling around the corners of my vision, drawing me toward an unimaginable fate. They were calling to me, these lost souls, with voices that dripped with despair and secrets. I felt their eyes upon me, brimming with sorrowful hunger, demanding that I join them in their eternal performance. Free will gnawed at me, torn as I was between the disorienting rage of nostalgia and the gnawing dread lurking beneath the surface. The unbearable weight of my sister's absence hung in the air, palpable and suffocating. A figure emerged from the swarm, draped in rags that once resembled clothes, its face obscured by shadows. It leaned closer until I could perceive eyes flashing with an uncanny light. You think you can save her? It spat, each word escaping its lips like smoke, laden with disdain. You're already too late. She's as trapped as you, lost in the echoes of your abuse. An icy breath gusted past me, and the memories came flooding back, igniting a conflagration of emotions I had struggled to suppress. Images of cruel laughter, broken promises, and bitter misunderstandings compressed my heart until it ached fiercely. The specter grinned wider, revealing a maw that glimmered with remnants of past grievances. But just as suddenly, that grin morphed into a grimace. Do you want to see the truth? It rasped, beckoning with skeletal fingers that trembled with excitement. The shadows surged, and before I could protest, the world around us quaked and shifted. Pictures began to coalesce more than mere visions. They were memories, raw and unyielding, dancing before my horrified gaze. Each scene unfolded like petals of a rotten flower, revealing the reality I had long wished to escape. I saw myself, a child in a tear-stained dress, arms outstretched toward my sister, her laughter echoing, cliffs of faith crashing down as the shadows engulfed her warmth. Then the laughter turned to cries. I never meant for her to feel abandoned, yet there she was, grasping at tendrils of darkness while I turned away in growing fear. Do you see? The figure's laughter twisted in tandem with the wails of my own conscience. You abandoned her when she needed you most, and now you come to play savior? Only suffering can bridge the chasm between your souls. Only agony can bring her back to know. I stammered, horrified. Yet before I could voice my denial, the shadows coalesced into a new form, flooding my senses. A banal, twisted reflection of my sister with hollow eyes stood before me, a mirror to my anguish. It stretched forth a hand, gnarled and trembling, whispering secrets laced with pain. Save me, she rasped. By becoming me. It was a demand and a plea, blurring the lines of agency and despair. Just then the eye of the storm exploded into a maelstrom. The room spun, swirling shadows approximating a storm within a storm, threatening to crush whatever flicker of hope remained. I clutched at my heart, realizing that this whirlwind heralded a truth I feared facing. Embrace the darkness. The faceless mass of torment yelled. The air thickened with despair, and yet, a split second of clarity ignited. It was not just my sister's past I needed to confront but my own. Could I descend into that chasm, the very origin of our loss? Just as I steeled myself to find the strength to confront the shadows of our shared sorrow, a loud crack echoed above like a bone snapping. Suddenly the floor beneath me roared alive, fractures opening wide to reveal deep, swirling nothingness below. The howls crescendoed into a single terrifying note. The cries of my sister mingled with the haunting laughter that echoed in ironclad chains. Will you jump? The shadows whispered together, forming a frenzied chorus. Will you plunge into the darkness to save her? Before I could answer, the floor lurched, and with a final scream I was falling. The world spun into chaos, the faces of torment blurring into a cyclone of anguish. I grasped desperately at wisps of existence, clawing for solace as I tumbled into this harrowing abyss. Would my sacrifice be for naught, or could I change our fates forever? And as I plummeted, the echoes around me morphed into a cacophony of laughter, joy twisted into sorrow. Then the voice pierced through, clear and resonant amidst the maelstrom. What if your choice is to save the darkness instead? In that moment, deep within the yawning void, I felt the weight of ultimate decision pressing down. Would I embrace the sacrifice willingly or lose everything, including myself, in this storm of despair? I fell into the dark, soul searching for redemption, or perhaps oblivion waited for me. The shadows hungered, and their feast was yet to begin. The darkness swallowed me whole, wrapping around my body like an old, familiar blanket drenched in regret. I fell through the void, my body weightless and vulnerable, as shadows curled around me like wraiths, tugging at the tendrils of my mind. The sound of laughter morphed into a distant hymn, grave and undulating, as though the very air were alive with morbid mirth. Suddenly, I landed not on a floor, but something soft and gelatinous, as if I had fallen into an immense, breathing creature rather than solid ground. The thing quivered beneath me, its surface slick and warm. I scrambled for balance, feet sinking into the disturbing substance. It pulsed rhythmically, a heart thumping in time with my dread-laced heartbeat. Glancing around, I found myself in an otherworldly chamber, the walls seething with dark energy. Wisps of smoke and shadow flickered ceaselessly, swirling in elegant impressions of beings long forgotten. They danced with violent grace, their features shifting and melting, morphing into grotesque reflections of my nightmares. I recoiled, every instinct screaming to flee, yet the lack of escape paralyzed me. Through the haze, I spotted flickers of light, small orbs that bobbed gently like specters lost in a fog. My heart raced in desperation. If they were remnants of hope, I had to reach them. With every cautious step, the ground beneath me trembled, the mass beneath me shifting and sighing as though alive, a beast of burden primarily nourished by fear. As I drew closer to the lights, fragments of familiar laughter echoed, pinging against the walls of my mind. The sound tinged with innocence, but there was something sinister about it. A mocking undertone that made my skin crawl, a reminder of a happiness eroded by the passage of time. I reached out, the flicker beckoning, a gentle glow that felt achingly familiar. And yet, tainted. Don't you want to be reunited? A voice whispered, sweet and syrupy, sliding through the air like poison. It curled around my spine, awakening a shiver down my limbs. It's all within your grasp. The light hovered, elongating, sculpting itself into the semblance of my sister. Her features remained dull and blurred, yet I could sense the warmth, the eternal bond that had once flourished between us. Sister? I croaked, the word heavy on my tongue, laden with longing. Is that you? Clarity fled as her face twisted, flickers of torment flashing across her gaze like lightning strikes in a storm. Save me! She shrieked, the plea resonating through the chamber, the air becoming thick with her pain. But the shadows closed in, wrapping around her like vines intent on suffocation. I reached towards her as despair crashed against me, a tidal wave of emotion so thick I could hardly breathe. No, I will save you. My voice rose defiantly, my resolve igniting, until a chilling laugh echoed all around me in a cacophony of derision, rippling through the air with malicious glee. Foolish child. The laughter twisted, and with it came the vision of my sister being swallowed whole, her gaze flickering into an abyss of darkness that cradled her like a lover. You cannot save what is not yours to reclaim. You share her fate. The grotesque mass under my feet inhaled sharply, the walls contracting, sensing my growing panic. Desperation punctured through the veil of fleeting hope, and I stumbled, nearly falling into the crevice that began to form beneath me, an insatiable maw yearning to consume. Then, from the recesses of shadow and despair, emerged more figures, grotesque and otherworldly, eyes gleaming with insatiable hunger. They circled like vultures, whispering secrets that twisted within me until I was dizzy. Join us, share in the lament. Sacrifice yourself. Carry her in your heart, and become one with the shadows you fear. Fear clawed at me. How many souls had they consumed? What madness lay within the bonds that this wretched existence sought to forge? The flickering orb of light pulsated with urgency, flickering, mirroring the shards of my memories. Your memories. I could almost see my sister's face within it, felt her hand, grasping for me through the dark. Choose. The shadows roared, laughter echoing, filling every seam of the chamber with their unfathomable glee. Join the torment or lose her forever to the embrace of eternal night. With a heart thundering in rebellion against despair, stuck between the beloved face of my sister and the sinister call of the darkness, I faltered. My hand hovered above my heart, uncertainty breaking my concentration, and then I took a step forward, propelled by both longing and fear. The moment hung in the air, pregnant with consequence. But the ground quaked violently beneath me, dark tendrils leaping into the air, grasping eagerly at my ankles, pulling. Terrified, I opened my mouth to scream, but the shadows enveloped me, their whispers solidifying into a singular hypnotic chant. Embrace the void. They beckoned, fingers coiling like serpents. In that dizzying moment teetering between salvation and oblivion, I recognized that the choice was more harrowing than I had imagined. The air thickened, a fog creeping in around me, a suffocating shroud of inevitability, as the very walls moaned with dark promises. Then I sensed it, the weight of something shifting behind me, like a presence lingering in the shadows woven into my skin. Fear coursed. What else lurked in this abyss? And before I could turn, a chilling breath swept over my neck, hot and unmistakably alive, breathing deeply as if inhaling my fear. The whispers intensified, escalating into a frightful howl, beckoning at my sanity. Will you embrace the dark? Or will you risk it all to save your sister? Then loud guttural laughter erupted, and as I turned, the darkness faded away, revealing a chorus of twisted faces grinning back at me. Their eyes filled with a hunger that pulsated through the air, a hunger that would soon consume all. In that horrifying realization, the choice shattered as something far more sinister emerged from the depths, a shadow willing to tear apart my very essence, and with a scream echoing from the void, I faced the unknown. I woke in a daze, blinking against the sharpness of fluorescent light that hung above me like some omnipotent eye, casting shadows that felt alive with malevolence. Panic surged through my veins like fire. Whatever nightmare I had just escaped clung to the seams of my memory, sticky and disorienting. The room was bare, but the air was thick with an unshakable dread, charged with unspeakable things, an oppressive energy that whispered promises of horror too potent to comprehend. The walls were cold metal, unyielding and smooth beneath my touch. A single flickering halogen bulb illuminated a door on the far side, and with an instinctive sense of urgency, I staggered towards it. I needed to escape, to put as much distance between myself and that laughter that still echoed ominously in my mind, the laughter of children, the laughter of shadows yearning for companionship. Grasping the doorknob, I hesitated. What lay beyond? Had the darkness released me, or was I merely on the threshold of a deeper nightmare? My heart raced, pounding an erratic rhythm in my chest as I twisted the handle. With a deep inhale, I pushed the door open. It swung ajar with a long grating creak that sent shivers down my spine. The hallway stretched infinitely before me, an endless corridor shrouded in a pale, ghostly light. Deep breaths fueled my adrenaline as I stepped into that hallway, each footfall echoing with an eerie finality, the darkness behind me intrusively whispering reminders of lost souls and broken promises. But the longing for escape urged me onward. A chill gripped my soul as a gentle breeze caressed my skin, weaving around me like the embrace of an old friend. The whispers grew louder, mixing with the cacophonous laughter that filled the air, twisting into a song dirge for the lost. My mind reeled as I stepped forward, tremors running through my veins. Images flashed in front of me without warning. My sister smiling in the light of a golden sunset, her laughter pure and innocent, juxtaposed with the specter of deceit that draped around her, shadows flickering against the backdrop of our shared past. But then my mind turned to darker images, the moments I had abandoned her, drowned in my own fears as she desperately grasped at the darkness that enveloped her. I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting the suffocating guilt that threatened to drown me. What I hadn't realized was that the shadows lurked closer, preying on my emotions, feeding off the regret and disillusionment that spiraled within. Suddenly, a door erupted on my right, slamming wide open, and the girl, the playful wraith whose presence haunted me, stood framed in the doorway, shimmering like moonlight twisted in a storm. You wanted to save her, she teased, her voice like silk dipped in poison. But now you must decide. Do you want to know the truth? Or do you want to remain lost in the darkness forever? Her tone dripped with mockery, an eerie laugh bubbling beneath. Step inside and the knowledge you crave will be yours. My heart pounded against my ribcage, terror mixed with intrigue. Any hope of safety eroded in that moment. I had crossed too far into the abyss to turn back now. Against my better judgment, I stepped through the threshold. The space immediately transformed, the garish brightness of the hallway dimmed behind me, and gave way to a room draped in shadows, flickers of pale light reflecting off surfaces made of glass and mirrors. All around me, twisted reflections danced, their faces a collage of my fears, desperately scrambling for freedom inside their confines. "Look," she sang, tossing her hair back with a flourish that made her appear both beautiful and grotesque. "Each of these reflections holds a secret of your existence. Pain, pleasure, love, you see it all." Her words hung heavy in the air as I approached the nearest mirror, the glass swirling with ripples that distorted my own face into a nightmare. Then images manifested beyond the glass, a darker version of myself, doing terrible things, neglect growing into abuse, a self that had allowed shadows to consume someone else's light. Racked with horror, I stumbled back, bile rising up my throat. This was my truth. I was complicit in my sister's fear and suffering as she disappeared beneath the weight of it all. Do you get it? Her laughter rang sharp and resolute. "You thought you could save her, but you've both been lost in the shadows together." "No," I shouted, desperation knotting my insides. "This isn't right." I shouted into the void, struggling against the slick walls that curled around me like hostile snakes. But as I trembled before the truth mirrored back to me, I felt a cold, guided hand urging me deeper. The reflections began to morph, a path unveiling itself. "You want her back? No more games, only the truth. You have to accept what you are," the girl urged, the shadows around us blending, dark fingers entwining. "Only then will you find her." Before I could comprehend fully, a dull pain erupted in my chest, and I felt the knife, the same blade that had called to me before, materialize, its lethal shimmer beckoning. "Will you risk everything to uncover the terrible truth?" she whispered, her voice now a serpentine hiss. "Will you destroy that version of yourself and become something else? Will you embrace the darkness?" As my heart raced, panic surged anew. The corridor outside was nothing but an echo of a past I could never grasp again. I could feel the wailing shadows grow louder, the whispers now spinning tales of blame and regret that swept through my thoughts like a tempest. Beads of perspiration broke out along my brow as I clutched the knife tightly, trembling beneath its weight. And just as I felt my own resolve mine the acceptable pain to get my sister back, I hesitated. In that rush of emotion, fleeting images flashed before me, tears mingled with laughter, and ultimately the ache of unfulfilled dreams and dreams. The shadows hesitated, waiting, drawing closer under the specter of a decision. "I am lost," I cried. "But I am not what I was." The girl's laughter faltered, echoing into silence. "Then embrace what you fear," she breathed softly, a hint of sincerity cutting through the chaos. "You are capable of breaking this cycle. You have the power to obliterate the ties that bind you both." And so, in an act of defiance against the murky jaws of despair that sought to consume me, I thrust the knife forward. As the blade pierced my own flesh, a combination of pain and release surged through me, a liberation from the dark chains that had bound me to that suffocating guilt. Time stopped. Everything around me fractured like glass breaking, reflecting shards of brightness intertwined with shadows. I felt the darkness pulsate and shatter around me as my pain spilled into the air. Wrapping around each of the forms trapped within the glass, they too began to merge, shadows unraveling as light flooded the room. Their cries intertwined with mine, resonating through the fabric of reality itself. "Freedom!" we screamed in unison as every whisper of longing ripped apart, unshackled from memories of despair and lies. Yet, beneath the surface of the chaos, I felt a relic of anguish slip from my grasp, a sudden realization. I had freed their souls, yet the darkness persisted, watching from the corners, smirking with ominous delight. As the last of the shadows dissipated into the ether, my own pain receded, leaving me breathless yet hollow. The girl stood among the newly released, chaos ebbing as their rejoices harmonized into a terrible silence. She watched me closely, her lips curling into a terrifying smile. "You think you're free?" Her voice was chilling, breaking my heart anew. "The game continues and shadows remain, always willing to wrap around your soul the moment you turn your back. You'll always carry this darkness with you, it's part of what keeps you seeking us," I gasped, realizing the truth that no matter how many struggles I endured against the tide, the darkness would always lurk just behind. Waiting for the moment of weakness, I felt it settle into the deepest crevice of my consciousness, a reminder of my perpetual battle. The corridor behind me opened wide, light spilling forth, while the shadows lingered, retreating into the depths of my haunting past, as they swirled in agonized whispers. I turned away from the shadows that gathered, moving through the light, yet a small, gnawing voice whispered through the recesses of my mind, echoing the girl's last words, and then, almost conspiratorially, I dared to voice the thought that lingered ominously, belied by the silence left in my wake. "That I will not forget you," I whispered into the depths, knowing in that moment what I had forged would never really leave. That darkness had forever tainted my heart. That as I stepped fully in that blinding brilliance, the last haunting laughter flickered like a candle just snuffed out, collapsing into the echo of my own voice, lost yet continuing in the game that awaited to unfold. For no one ever really escapes the shadows.